Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Nerdicus Dave, and today I'm joined by Rebecca and Jim from Sometimes You Crit Podcast. How are you folks doing today?
Great, Dave. How are you?
Good.
Hey.
If you would each be so kind to kind of introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll jump in.
Okay, I guess I'll start. My name's Jim. I am the DM for Sometimes You Crit. I'm a high school teacher. I teach yearbook and a little bit of AV stuff and some business things. I've been playing D&D since the late 70s, around 77, 78 was my first exposure to it. Had a teeny tiny little company back around the 3.0 days. Put out a few things, and then got drawn back into D&D from the whole pandemic deal. So here we are.
And hey, I'm Rebecca. I started playing in late 80s, early 90s, played first and second edition, then stopped, had a family, got back in for fifth edition, met Jim and some other guys during the pandemic online, and then we started playing online, and then we started a little podcast. So
I want to say, like, the pandemic has been really good for not humanity, but D&D, it seems like.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So many people have either come back to the hobby or started the hobby because they're looking for something else to do. Jokingly, my friend James Intercasso says it was a conspiracy between Roll20 and Zoom to boost their numbers, and sometimes it feels like that. Maybe
it worked.
Yeah,
it definitely worked. They blew up. No one had heard of Zoom before that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's funny because I used to do live chats before the pandemic, and we kind of stopped for a while, brought them back for the pandemic. And like before, a lot of times I'd have to be like explain to people what Zoom was or how to use it, and now it's like pretty much everybody just knows.
Right. Yeah. Zoom. Yeah. Zoom made a fortune off the pandemic, I think.
So how did Sometimes You Crit come about?
Well, like Rebecca said, we started playing together on a Discord server, and I think we were all just kind of. I know me personally, I was stuck at home during the pandemic, looking around, going, "What the heck's going to go on here?" And obviously, everyone didn't go out and get in shape and read all the books they were going to read during the pandemic. And we were looking for something to do, so I found a Discord server. It's what's it called? Old Adventures Unite.
Old Adventures Unite. Yeah.
Old Adventures Unite. We all got together on there, and the first thing I ran for anybody on there, I think I played one shot with somebody, and then I ran Tomb of Horrors because I'm like, well, I ran Tomb of Horrors, 1,000 years ago, and then we just sort of went on from there, and we all joined somebody else's game. We eventually left that game, and I started DMing for this group, and then we said, hey, why don't we start a podcast? And they all said, sure, as long as we don't have to do anything, we'll be happy to do a podcast with you. So here we are.
Yeah.
So, as always, folks, in the description, you can find links to find Sometimes You Crit podcast and, stalk them across the interwebs, not in a creepy way, but in the good way. And are you playing homebrew? Are you running adventures?
It's homebrew. I haven't really, we've got, all the books and all the things, and I just kind of want to play off of what I feel like doing at the time and kind of what the party wants to do. Mm-hmm. So I'm not the person that creates. I don't have this, okay, well, now I've got planned out at first level what they're going to be doing at 15th level. Like, I don't have that at all. It's more of, let's see what their backstory has. Let's kind of put them in a place and see what comes of it. So it's sort of growing based on what they're doing. And we may toss in something pre-written down the line, but I don't see it happening.
Rebecca, what are you playing in the game?
I am playing a Furball Barbarian. She's this little Southern belle. She's all about her manners. So I'm having a lot of fun with her. So
Is that what causes her to rage when someone uses bad manners?
yeah, and she's met a snooty little elf that really pissed her off. So yeah.
Well, she just didn't understand you, is what it was.
Yeah, she was a snooty little elf. So
You mean just an elf?
yeah, yeah, pretty much. She was the quintessential elf who basically told her to F off, because I don't know if I can use bad words on your channel. So
we've been known to use a few in the past.
okay, because I kind of have a potty mouth, so I'm gonna try to keep it clean. So.
We shoot for like a PG-13, so you get an F-bomb. Just use it. Choose your use of it wisely.
Oh, okay.
So how did you guys find this Discord in order to kind of interact and find your game? Like, what made you go there first of all places?
I was kind of stalking Reddit because I was looking for a group, and I was trying to find something that wasn't. I was looking for a group that wasn't like 19. I was looking for something that wasn't, to me, a child, and I hate to be that way, but I don't want to play. I'm a mother, and I don't want to play with someone I could be old enough to be their mother, even though someone in our group I could be their mother now. But he's an old soul. Cole, you're an old soul. But that's really, I was just constantly going on Reddit looking for, and then I found a post, and it really sort of fit my needs, and I looked and I asked for an invite to the group, and there I was. So
I think we ended up there the exact same way, because I did the same thing. I was on Reddit. And I said, I'm looking for a group. How do people find groups online? I had no idea. I knew that there were, I had a bunch of, since I teach high school, I have a bunch of students with Discord servers and everything, and I didn't know anything about Discord really. I just knew it existed. And then somebody said, hey, here's one with some little bit older people that are playing. Let me get you an invite. Got me an invite, and that's how I ended up on there too. So we almost had we may have gone through the same Reddit post to get there.
Right. Yeah.
It is definitely interesting looking for games now as opposed to back when we all started. We're not all quite the same age, but we're like in that same age range. We're all pre-internet, and like back then it's like you just played the game with whoever was available, even if you didn't like them, probably because there literally was no one else to play with.
Well, I can remember going to the game store and looking on the billboard and like grabbing the little tag and getting somebody's number and like, hey, I saw your name, let's play. So I guess it's the same, right?
It was definitely like the early days of D&D was super sketchy.
Oh, well, during almost the entirety of the 80s, I was in the Marines, and I played D&D everywhere in the Marines. I played in Korea. I played on an aircraft carrier. I played in Egypt. Like I always had I just kept my books with me, and we would just open them up, pull them out, and drop down and play wherever we were at. So it was a good. Once you had the books, it was a good, cheap way to exist and have fun.
Yeah. So being in the military and playing RPGs, did you find it was more of these were already people that played RPGs, or was it more of, oh, we're all kind of stuck together with nothing better to do, and someone's like, hey, do you want to be an elf? And normally this jock-like person probably would not be interested in being an elf, but they're like probably in the middle of nowhere with nothing else to do.
I think that's the case. I think that especially when you're on deployment and you got books, and the people in the military, if you don't realize this, are not rich. And you're stuck in the middle of nowhere, and you're looking for something to do that's cheap. And you're like, well, we're gonna drink anyways. Why don't we do something while we drink?
Yeah.
So you would just sort of, all right, you're a fighter. This is what you got to do. Here's your dice, because just roll when it's time, and you just kind of, cultivate a group.
Yeah, well, something more, it's something more engaging than just slinging cards or something, right? Or gambling.
Oh yeah.
And, go, back to your point of not having a lot of money. Um, I know, Rebecca, you had said about, you kind of played until you kind of started a family, and families ruin everything. I know, I've got one. I fortunately always kept playing though. Unfairly, I think wives do the lion's share of like everything around the house and domestic and kids.
Yeah.
But my wife was just happy that I was like, well, I'm not going out to the bar. I'm not doing other things. I'm hanging out with my dorky friends rolling funny shaped dice.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, there were other stuff going on too. So we'll not get into that. But yeah.
So do any of your kids, either of you, if you, I don't know if you have kids, Jim, do any of your kids play?
My son is actually a DM, and he's the one that helped me get on Reddit and find this wonderful group that I play with. But I'm going to give him a hard time, as I always do. He refuses to listen to the podcast.
I don't understand
that. I don't either.
I don't understand that. Well, at least you have a kid that plays. I have 2 children, and both in their 20s, and neither of them plays. Neither of them is interested.
Yeah.
I have my son is in his early 20s, and he plays occasionally. He's a bit of a filthy casual, and my daughter has 0 interest whatsoever.
Yeah, my daughter, I don't know if there's an amount of money I could pay her to play. My son, I guess if I cornered him, he'd do it. He's more interested in video games, but I think he would if I asked super nicely.
Yeah. Rebecca, does your son listen to actual plays or watch live streams?
No, he does not. He got me to start watching Critical Role, and which is funny, but then he won't watch Critical Role. But he was like, "Oh, maybe you should watch this." But then he won't watch it. But then he tells me how great he thinks Matt Mercer is as a DM, but then he won't watch Critical Role. But then it's really funny to, like, we'll go out to breakfast on Sundays and we'll have all these D&D conversations. I know the people are like, what are they talking about? So.
Well, at least you have something you can bond with, with your son over. Like,
right.
A lot of parents don't have that commonality, right? Where, and especially, RPGs are unique in the sense that there's a shared language and experience that you can go anywheres and talk to any gamer and start up a conversation, and it's like you've been talking to this person forever. So
right.
Oh yeah, if you say you're a critter and somebody else is too, you're in.
Right.
So, but that's not as bad. At least it would be bad if he wouldn't listen to your actual play, but he listens to others.
But it's funny. He did a Pathfinder podcast. They only did like 5 episodes, and it was a big thing. Like, Mom, you have to listen. Then I listened to a couple episodes, and then when we started this, and I'm like, well, I listened to your podcast.
Yeah.
And but.
Anyone that has kids knows that is not that the relationship is not always a reciprocal one.
Right.
No.
And I've tried.
No, it is not.
I've tried every mom guilt trip. I've tried every mom guilt, and he still won't listen. So, whatever.
Well, like I said, at least you guys have that shared common interest. I honestly, though, I generally do not watch or listen to live games either. I'm not really into it. Doug runs our website and does tons of stuff for us here at the channel. He's into Critical Role and that kind of thing. And then Ted has like a bunch of different ones that he's listening to or watching while he works a lot of times. For me, I tried it, but I just can't get into it. Like, and also like it's very hard to be an actual play producer or live stream producer because there are so many of them now. And it's not like you're watching a 20-minute TV show. Like how long are your podcasts? How long is your sessions?
We've gone down. We started off at like 3 hours.
Yeah.
And the podcast, and then after I decided that was taking me like 9 hours to edit, we're aiming for right now somewhere between an hour 30, hour 45 after everything's been edited out. So we can actually, don't tell anybody, but we've started doing 2 episodes on some night. So we'll do one episode, end it up, take a break, 10 minutes later, come back, do the next episode.
You're giving away our secrets.
I know, I'm giving away all the secrets. And then we got one like the one that came out Saturday, we had in the bank, so I didn't have to worry about rushing through and editing it. So
yeah, even my own our own streams where we play games, we don't do many. We've got we do one a week. It is only 2 hours, and having talked to tons of streamers, it's like anything beyond 2 hours really isn't worth doing if you're doing it to be watched, because the 2 hour mark is like when you see the drop off.
Right. What when we were talking about like Critical Role, or there's a couple other ones out there that I've watched or listened to, I don't enjoy watching them. Yeah. I enjoy listening to them. Like I listen when I walk, I listen when I work out, I listen when I'm in my car, I listen, there's a whole bunch of different places, and I just stop wherever I'm at and I pick up where I'm at afterwards. But if I have to sit and watch something for 3 hours or 2 or 3 hours, I'm not going to do that. Yeah.
Well, you know what we were doing when they started the second campaign, I was like, all right, this is a good jumping on point. And as far as the channel, we can start doing reviews of them. This will be fun. And I actually so I would stream it to my TV and I would watch it, and as soon as they would say roll initiative, I would start falling asleep.
I was the same way. I was the same way with it. So
it's hard. Matt tries. He really does try the best he can.
But it's D&D, right? And that's my whole argument when people are like, this is not real D&D. Right. I'm like, it is totally real D&D.
Yeah.
Combats drag on. They're to me, they're boring to watch. Yeah. And the most interesting parts are actually the parts that are probably a little bit less like D&D, because they're all professional actors, so they're good at improv and interacting with each other and the NPCs.
Right, exactly. And that's one thing people say, when they join a group, say, well, you're not Matt Mercer. Well, you're not Mercer Ray either. So let's all temper our expectations here.
Yeah, I'm not Laura Bailey. That's what I was like. I am, So
when you have a group that's that great and gets, they get paid a lot to be that great, and they're super talented. You should come out with a great product, and they do.
Yeah, I mean, in all fairness, though, they didn't get paid originally, right? It was just their kind of game they started recording.
Yeah, it was just their home game that it grew out of. So
that's
what we're doing. That's our plan right now.
Yeah.
We're on the 2 or 3 year Critical Role plan. In a couple of years, we'll be making $1 million off of Twitch or something. But.
Nice. What made you want to do it as a podcast?
Jim?
I don't. You know what? I really don't remember originally. Like I said, I'm a TV guy, so I'm used to editing things. And once we started doing it, and I was starting to listen to a bunch of, I just thought, well, we can do that.
Yeah.
Why can't we do that? We can make it as interesting as other people do. And then it just kind of, well, let's give it a try. And I think originally was, let's give it a try. We'll give it a couple months and see if it works out. And if it works out, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And I'm enjoying, it has changed the way I DM, and it's changed the way I think they play D&D.
It is,
because you're just not playing it just to play. You're playing it so that other people can hear you playing it. You're cognizant of doing your accents. You're cognizant of interacting with people. You're cognizant of letting everyone talk. And it changes. Right now the group they're on point. Like you said about combat being boring. We just done our 5th episode. We had 1 combat.
Yeah.
It lasted 2.5 rounds.
Now,
so go ahead.
I was just gonna say, combat's not boring to play. It's just boring to watch.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But we just had a quick combat, and it's been just mostly RP and them getting to know their characters. And I think that's the one thing that they do really well on the shows I've listened to that I like, is that you like the characters. it's not the DM. It's not. It's you like the characters and you're interested in their story. And I think that these guys are doing a real good job of RPing their characters and sort of building their own story up.
I mean, one of the great things about being a GM and kind of learning these lessons is knowing when to just kind of shut up and listen and let the players interact with each other. For one, because they do it because they enjoy it, and two, like there's always things you can garner as the GM that they're taking away from the game that you can use to enhance your GMing skills and the story that you're trying to tell.
Well, yeah, and to tell you the truth, I was telling you earlier, I don't have this big, humongous, 20 level thing planned out on what they're going to do, and I just listen to them and see what they have to say, and I'm like, oh, that sounds better than what I thought could happen, and then I just change everything. I just a real quick instance. I don't think Rebecca knows. I know she doesn't know this. I haven't said this to anybody. When they were on the ship, and they found that New Nose, who was No Nose, it's a whole big story, was dead, and they found his room was completely tumbled. And they went looking, and I knew that there was a secret compartment there, and I knew the secret compartment was empty. Whatever. So they found the secret compartment, and they looked in it was empty. And then one of the players said, I want to reach in there and feel around and see if there's something in there. And I went, okay, now there's something in there. And then and now they find something, and it's something that was hidden magically. And then, we're just going off from there. So I just listen to what they say and try and manipulate the world to kind of go along with what they want.
Yeah. I mean, when a player comes up with an idea and they want to do something interesting or something that you didn't necessarily expect, I think it's a good idea to try and reward that, because if you reward it, they'll do more of it, or they'll think about it more. They'll get better invested, right? Like, because they found something in the empty hidden compartment, and because of something they did, they're going to care a whole lot more about it.
Rebecca, how many times do I say I did not expect you guys to do that?
Every session you say that to us.
Every session. I was like, okay,
and we always say, it's us. Why did you not expect us to do the unexpected? So.
I'll say, okay, so I've got it planned out. If they do A, B, C, or D, well, no, they're doing like G over here.
I mean, we always do the unexpected. Exactly. We're always like, it's us.
That's right.
Well, if you were able to anticipate it, it would not be chaos, pure chaos, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, and we want some chaos.
Right. We are chaos. So
I mean, one of the best things I learned about running games and GMing is to be able to throw away things that I came up with and my ideas and the narratives that I wanted to tell for what the players provide for me. Much like you said, you're just kind of listening and waiting for them to kind of tell you what you want from them. Now, not all groups, this doesn't work with all groups, because I've definitely played with groups where they want you to grab them by the hand and lead them along, but other groups where they're just like, you don't have to do anything as a GM because they're going to do something.
Right. And I think, like, especially with people who are just starting, sometimes you need some, maybe not tracks, but you need bumpers, like on the bowling alley, something to kind of keep them a little bit contained. But I prefer, we're just now every once in a while we take a Friday off, and we're getting Rebecca to start DMing, and she's running Candlekeep.
Yeah.
And, I don't know anything about Candlekeep. So she's running Candlekeep. This is first time DMing. She's doing a real good job. But we went outside, and there was like a balcony, and you could overlook it. It was all this like chaos that you can see. And I looked up the wall, and I'm like, is that wall climbable? And right away, she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I think I'm going to climb that wall.
And I was like, no.
I'm like, okay, I'm not going to climb the wall. But you want a little bit of, let's spread it out here. Let's see what we can do. Let's push the limits a little bit.
That also happens when you have a GM that's been GMing for a while, not haven't had a chance to play. All of a sudden, they go crazy.
Oh, yeah. If you're going to let me play, I'm not just going to like walk along and follow everybody. Are you kidding me? I'm going to go where I'm not supposed to go.
Oh, yeah.
Candlekeep, that was a fun book to check out. I actually I like this. I like the actual Candlekeep setup itself, and I thought that was a great place to kind of like stage an HQ for your adventuring party. Even if you didn't use any of the adventures in that book, I thought it was kind of worth it just for the Candlekeep itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she knows more about it than I do. That's for sure.
Yeah.
That's one of the books I haven't purchased yet. So.
Well, now you won't have to worry about spoilers.
That's right.
What are you playing in that game, Jim?
I am playing a we just started that. I'm playing a bard.
A bard,
I just lost my character there.
It's a oh my gosh.
Why can't you remember this for me?
It's not a fawn, it's the
oh yeah, the satyr.
Satyr.
Yes.
Yeah,
satyr bard.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And how long have you guys been producing the podcast? I know it's relatively new.
I think our first episode was mid-February of this year.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Like February 19th or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so how has it been going? Have you guys been able to establish a foothold? Are you starting to get some followers?
Yeah, we're doing. I mean, it's so hard to know where you're at because you hear people go, "Oh, we've been doing something for 3 months and we've got 1,000 people down." I don't know how we're doing as far as that goes. We probably have 130, 140 people that regularly download everything that we have, and we, since it's an actual play, it's not just one episode being downloaded.
Yeah.
Like today, our very first episode was downloaded 2 or 3 times earlier today. So, we're constantly getting the downloads coming. So I think it's going all right. I knew it wasn't going to be an overnight thing. We started right away. Like we said, okay, we're going to pretend like we've been doing this forever. We're going to have a Patreon. We're going to do da-da-da. No one's going to join the Patreon. We're nobody. We got 3 people that are on it already. So
boom, man,
thrilled.
That's more than 0. So there you go.
Thrilled. Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
yes. In just a few months, that's fantastic.
So to have 100 people that regularly care about what you're doing that are strangers, in and of itself is impressive. It's hard in this day and age when you look at social media and you see people where they're at and what they're doing, and it's very hard to not compare yourself to them. But every overnight success, like no one sees the 5 or 10 years that they put into it before that. A true overnight success is usually a very rare thing.
Right. Yeah. And it's kind of cool to where, what was it the other day? I think it was on Twitter. We always have downloads in Australia. We have a bunch in Europe, and we have a certain like 3 people, I guess, in Australia that really like us. And one of them like reached out to us on Twitter the other day, like, "Hey, really like your show, da da da." And that's just really uplifting, to tell you the truth. That someone from the other side of the world can say, "Hey, on the internet, we hear you and we like you."
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you're doing great then. Like it's weird, like from doing like YouTube and the YouTube standpoint, right? Like you see, like we've got 100,000 subscribers. That sounds like a lot, but then if you compare it to other niches, it's like nothing, right? But then, like if you look at YouTube as a whole, even just getting monetized on YouTube, there are so many channels that never even managed to do that, right? So it's really easy to look at what other people are doing and kind of get discouraged or compare yourself to them, without seeing like there's someone else that is probably looking at what you're doing and going, "Oh, I wish I could do that."
Oh yeah, you see. I mean, I've looked at different statistics for podcasts, and I mean, if you're getting more than 100 people downloading your podcast, you're doing better than something like like 90% of the podcasts out there. So I'm happy right now. It'd be great to, expand and get bigger, but really we're just going to keep on doing what we're doing and hope that people like it. And it's mostly about getting exposed. Like we were from the beginning, we're like, does anyone know somebody that's really like famous that could get us out there to everybody? But just getting the exposure and having people listen to you. And, like our first episode has had almost 500 people have downloaded it so far. And, just the more people are going to listen to you, the more people are going to stick with you, I guess.
And what level is the party?
No, we're just second level now.
They're baby set. Yeah, we started season 2. Like I said, we dumped off season 1 because of some people leaving, and started season 2. And usually when I run a game, I do one episode or one night of your level 1, and then 2 nights you're level 2, and then we're in level 3. Well, this one we were four episodes of level 1 because we started them on a ship, and they're traveling to Lambrelli. So yeah, they just became level 2, and they're thrilled about that. So you just gotta keep it back just a little bit. Don't give them anything too easily.
Yeah, I don't even, most of our games don't even start at level 1 anymore.
I really like people starting at level 1 because, and everyone's like, oh, everyone's so fragile at level 1. Well, don't attack them with a dragon. Like, let them interact with people. Let them figure out what they are doing. Let them figure out their characters. Let them explore the world. Explore the space. What they have, and then I just think it makes better later on down the line. But to me, like, I see people. Oh, okay, we're gonna play a game tonight. Everyone's 10th level. Okay, that's too much. That's too many options for me. I don't even know what my character can do.
So for us, like, when I say we don't start at first level, we usually start at 3rd, but just because it's just high enough to get the subclass, and I think that is it. And then usually one or two of the players be like, well, if we're gonna start at 3rd, can we start at 4th so we can get our first stat bump?
Exactly. See, what players will just keep on asking. You just got to say no every once in a while.
Yeah,
for sure.
But in our defense, he did let us start off with a feat, so we did get a free feat at first level. So
yes.
I think that's going to become the standard, and whenever they do the upgrade in 5.5, it looks like.
Yeah, it just and I was so used to original AD&D where you had like, what was it, 6 choices. You can be a wizard, or you can be a bard, or there was very few choices you could be. And now it feels like you have so many choices, and it's still not enough for people. And then by giving them that free feed at first level, now there's a 1,000 more choices you could actually start off with. So,
well, also the funny thing too is in like AD&D, like, even when they expanded and now you had the Cavalier and the Barbarian, but you also still had to make the prereqs for those classes if you wanted to play them anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I like that. I like there being a little, well, you may want to be that, but you can't be. So
I think there was only, well, where all the core classes didn't have prereqs, like the fighter, cleric, thief, and wizard or magic user back then.
Yeah.
Man, you're asking me to pull something out of my brain.
I think the spellcasters didn't, but you couldn't cast spells if you didn't have a high enough stat.
So intelligence, it was like intelligence.
I think you were limited to the level you could cast.
Yeah.
If your intelligence was 16, like you could only cast like up to like 5th level spells or something like that. So
we try to explain to these youngins, like, if you were a wizard, you got a 1d4 hit die, and if you rolled a 1, you were screwed.
You better not trip.
1 hit point.
You better not trip, because zero is dead.
I ran one game, and the players wanted to play an evil campaign, and it was like a slow TPK. And there was one player left, and he was only still alive because he was in a sepia snake sigil, and he was trapped. And it was the Drael Necromancer. He was either 5th or 7th level, but he only had like 15 hit points.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember. That's why we were talking about it the other day about different classes that people like to play. I like playing fighters because when I started in D&D, I didn't want to start off with 2 hit points.
Yeah.
So
I remember another character, his catchphrase was a noble quest, and he was a fighter that wanted to be a paladin, but the player didn't roll high enough stats to be a paladin.
There you go. Now you're not a paladin.
Yeah.
You're just not. Sorry.
Yeah, or back in those days, if you were a paladin and you did unpaladin-like things, you would lose your paladinhood, and then you would just be like a sucky fighter.
He'd be a guy. He's a guy at that
Just
point.
some guy.
He's a guy with a cross at that point.
Yeah, you didn't have your paladin abilities. You didn't have all the fighter abilities, but you had some of them. So you were just like almost as good as a fighter.
Yeah. Well, that's where lawful stupid came from. Remember?
Yes.
If you're a paladin, you better be lawful stupid, or you weren't going to stay a paladin for long.
Yep.
It was a different time for sure.
Oh yeah. Well, and then there was that wasn't a thing. There was no such thing as a TTRPG. So everything was new. Everything was, I thought that we had a lot of options back then, because before that there were no options. Yeah. You just didn't play. You played Monopoly and that was it.
Did you get involved in any other RPGs?
I played Masquerade and Shadowrun because yes, I was a goth back in the day, so I played Masquerade and Shadowrun. So, and then I've also played Pathfinder. So,
yeah, I played something that's way older than those. I think I played Traveler. Do you remember Traveler?
I don't know. No.
I know it. I never played it. And also, I know back then, like, I don't know if it's still that way, but I know you could die in character creation when playing Traveler.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Traveler had a whole bunch of little teeny tiny like booklets that you would buy, and it was basically D&D in space, and it was it was amazing and weird, and you had to have 15 books to play, and it was fun. I enjoed Traveler a lot.
Since your return to RPGs, have either of you dipped your toe in on any other games, or has it just been 5e?
Pathfinder and Star Wars.
Yeah, for me it's just been 5e. I'm to tell you the truth, I'm not. I think that you can do just about anything in any game, and I know people are going to hate me saying that, but it's just playing. Like if I was a player and you say, "Oh, we're going to play this game," I'm just going to tell you what I'm going to do, and you tell me what I got to roll. So it's just playing. It's the running it. I think that would be much more difficult because going from one system to another. But I'd like to play another game. It just
okay. I totally misinterpret what you're saying, but at first, no, because that's how I learn new games, right? I'm like, sure, like either give me a pre-gen or I'll figure out just enough to make a character, and like once I get at the table as a player, you're right, like that's my philosophy, and that's how I actually learn faster is by going, all right, like I'll tell you what I want to do, just tell me what I need to roll.
Exactly.
I like that philosophy. I thought you were saying you don't need any other systems, you can just play with D&D.
Oh no, it's just, but I just think that playing is playing. If you're investigating a murder, what are you going to do? Well, I'm going to go over here, I'm going to check the body out. What do I have to do? Well, in this system you roll these D8 and 6 D6s, whatever. Okay. Tell me what happens because of that. And as long as you've got a good GM running it, I think that most systems would probably be pretty easy to pick up. It's picking it up as a GM that would be hard.
Yeah.
I don't have the brain power to run another one.
Rebecca, which Star Wars did you play?
Edge of Empire, and I played it at Star Wars Celebrations. So.
Oh, cool. Oh, so that's the Fantasy Flight one, right? With the custom dice.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. We did a couple campaigns with it, and Edge of the Empire is actually my favorite version of those. I don't know. I'm like the only, when it comes to actually playing, I don't like Jedi. I'm anti-Jedi.
You sound like my son.
I know.
Play Star Wars and not be a Jedi?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, if you let me be a Sith then, but I want to be somebody.
Yeah. And then we were supposed to pick up a family game of that, and then COVID. So
Yeah.
that's gone nowhere. And then, I have all the books for that. That's never gonna happen. So
Well, apparently you have a group now that might be might be game.
yeah. So
We're up for anything. As long as you want to run it, we're up for anything.
oh, run it. No, you're gonna run it.
No. This is full right now. I have no more. Anytime I add something else in here, something useful's got to go. So
yeah. It is hard, right? It's a time commitment. That's probably why I like, rules lights games. Like pretty much any Powered by Apocalypse game you can pick up pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
Cypher System was a little bit intimidating to pick up because it's like, is it this book? It is this book. Yeah, it's a pretty beefy book. Well, can we say it?
Yeah.
It's a pretty beefy book, right? That's kind of intimidating. And, but I decided to run it, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure I know how this game works. But I'm like, let me reread it anyway. And then after I just skipped all the player stuff, I was like, oh, there's not that much in here to read after all, right? Like, you skip the player stuff. You don't really need to read all the monsters. And it kind of really pares down what you actually need to know as far as the rules. So that wasn't too bad. But nowadays, I so much prefer rules-like games. Powered by Apocalypse, super easy from the player's side or from the game master side. Doug says Quest is super easy too. But a lot of them are just like even Quest is like that is funny because the character sheet, and both of you are old enough to know what I mean when I say this, looks like a Mad Libs, right? Like that's essentially like making your character, and then like you pick a role and it's like equivalent to a class, but there's like no stats. There's like 2 stats. It's like. And you don't roll them. They just are just the same. It's like how many health points you have, and your action points, and then you spend your action points basically just to use the abilities you get from your rolls. And my first game of Monster of the Week, I was like, all right, I might just need have some questions about making my character, and it's Powered by the Apocalypse, so they're just like they use what's called a playbook, which is essentially a pre-gen character with a bunch of boxes that you check to make your character. I'm like, oh, you just follow the instructions and you have a character. It's so easy.
That's cool. Do you remember? I mean, this was back in the 80s, and it wasn't really TTRPG, but Steve Jackson games.
I do, yeah.
I actually came to Steve Jackson games much later in my life.
Gotcha. They used to come in basically like a little baggie. And you would pop open the bag, and it was a little, maybe like a 3x5 card of size stuff, and like, oh, here's a little booklet with rules, and here's some pieces you can pop out, and here's a little map, and here's the game. And it was, anyone could learn the game in minutes, and they were fun to play.
Yeah, and like now there's tons of like 1-page RPGs that are kind of like that. You can just like jump in.
Right.
DM Scotty just put out his easy D6 system, and me and Ted had gone out to Ohio to visit him, and he ran his game for us, and it was like very early, but it was like, here's an index card. What do you want to play? Tell me what you want to play. Okay, write these things down on the index card. Okay, what do we do next? Throw away the index card. Because it was like,
wow,
it was like that simple. And I was like, you know what? Sometimes, I feel like sometimes people confuse complexity with how good something is.
Yeah.
Right. Well, go online. Everyone. Oh, I don't like the way the monk works, so I'm going to write a 40-page thesis on how to change the monk. Well. Or just play the monk the way it is. Like you don't have to have a billion new rules for something. Just go with it.
Some people just like to tinker.
They do. I don't have the time for that. There's too many rules. There's too many classes that if I don't like this class, well, pick another one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so many options. Pick a different option.
If this
Have a
one
ball.
doesn't work, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So
We actually have. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to
Go
say
ahead.
there's a question from the chat. I wanted to grab it.
Oh, boy.
We can go back to that. So Brian Smith has kind of a general question, not to get too real, but how long is fair for a forever DM to keep running games before the players give it a shot once or twice?
How long is fair? That's an excellent question. I think that the players should, first of all, if you get a good group like this group right now, I don't think that Rebecca, and I'm not speaking for her, and she can speak for herself. I don't think she ever really thought about DMing games. Maybe it ran through her head, but I don't think felt comfortable doing it because it's a lot of stuff. But once she got into a really good group, and it's not me, it's the group. Once she got into a really group, she feels comfortable with the group. And now you're like, hey, I think I could give it a try. And I'm not afraid to fail because the group wants you to succeed.
Yep.
If you don't succeed, the group fails. It's no fun for anybody. So they want you to succeed. They're going to help you. So I think after after a couple of months, if, poke around with your DM, say, hey, I'd like to give it a try. And if you're in a good group, you should be able to, have people that want you to succeed and have fun with you.
I agree. 100%.
What you've been playing for a long time, Rebecca, and is what Jim said true? Like, this is your first time GMing?
Yeah, I just tried, and at first I thought I was cursed because some setbacks happened, and it wasn't about my DMing. It was like outside influences. But once I actually DM'd for the first time, like really DM, it was not hard to do. And, so it's a lot easier than I thought. And it's, players need to give it a try.
It's,
They really
it can be intimidating at first. And I feel like even someone who's been running games for a long time, you still will get jitters before you start playing. And then once you start, like, you kind of forget about that and you're just playing the game. And really it's just a matter of encouraging the players. And, you can try and start them off with like, hey, would anyone like to run like a one shot? And let them, dip a toe in, less of a commitment.
Well, that's why Candlekeep is good for her, because she said, hey, I want to try something. Let me try Candlekeep, because you got yourself basically a one shot. And I think we're ending up doing it in like 2 or 3 sessions.
Yeah.
The first one. So, that gives you a good idea of what to do. And I think a lot of people say, well, I don't want to GM because I don't know all the rules. Guess what? I don't know all the rules either.
And I don't know all the rules. And
really? I don't know all the rules, but the internet is out there, and we've got all kinds of books and access to everything. We can figure out what's going on.
And it was so funny because the night after I did it for the first time, and I talked to my son about it, and I said, I just started making shit up, and he goes, yeah, that's half of it. He goes, that's half of it. And I was like, okay. And I was like, because after a while, I was like, okay. So yep.
There you go.
Yeah, I know, like, I started running a Monster of the Week game, and I had only played like 2 sessions of the game. I read the rules, but like 2 of the players in the game had a lot more experience with that game than I did. So if I wasn't sure about a rule, I just asked them. I mean, like, and that's part of it too. Like, this idea, I think you put a lot more pressure on yourself as the GM if you feel like you have to be the absolute authority and know everything about the game you're running. Where, like, I'm an idiot and I know I'm an idiot, so I have no problem with going, Vegas or James, this is how I interpret this rule. Is that your read on it as well? And they're like, well, yes, or no, I always thought it worked this way. And like, hopefully you're playing with friends, right? So it's like, it's a shared experience.
Well, we do, like on Roll20, one of the main things we use it for is someone will say, oh, I want to cast this spell. And the first thing I say is, put it on Roll20. They put on Roll20. We all look at the spell, say, okay, what exactly are you trying to do with this spell? Even if we know what the spell does, let's see what the spell says. Okay, so now we're in agreement. that this is what the spell can do. Okay, go ahead and have a ball.
Yeah.
And if we have trouble, there's a lot of sage advice out there that you can get on the internet. And we do that a lot. Where, okay,
Yeah.
what does Crawford say about it? And we'll find something where he says this is it. Okay, let's go with it. And that's what we do.
I've got it. I've got the perfect ploy to get your players to get at least one of your players to sit in the GM seat. You have to incorporate into your session, into the game, a scenario where there's an RPG, a role-playing game within the game, and then one of them has to be the GM.
Oh, I am taking that. I am taking that. Yes, that's a good one. That's definitely a good one.
I got some ideas who that's for.
Well, so the way that the reason I thought about that is because Brian's the one that asked the question, and he's like, what I don't get is players can RP as elves and dwarves. How hard is it to RP as a GM for a few hours? I'm like, that's a brilliant idea. Just make them role play as the GM for a few hours.
Oh, I love that.
Because I've already said that I would like to run another one shot in Jim's world. I've already said that. So,
well, and to tell you the truth, I guess this is, because for me, I always ran the games. I was all from the time I started. I think the first game or two that I played in high school, I didn't. After that, I was always the DM. So me and my friends, we would go to the game store. We would buy a module. When my friends would drive, I would sit there and I would read the module on the way home, and I would run the module when we got home. So I always, I was always the one running it. But here recently, Rebecca said she wanted to do it. And then all of a sudden somebody else goes, hey, I wouldn't mind running a one shot too. And then somebody else said, and I think, well, let me see. You said it. Cole said it.
Yeah.
Mark said it.
No, Mark said he's absolutely not going to do it.
You, Cole, and Ian all said they would do it. That's a pretty good number from only having one DM to potentially having 3 in a group. I'm pretty proud of that, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
So Mark's the one you have to make run the game within the game.
That was going to be one of my 100%.
100%.
Mark. Be Mark and Chris. They said they were absolutely not going to do it. Those are my 2 nominees. So.
Mark or Chris. Chris is gonna be really hard. Having your cousin from Boston doing it, but we'll I think maybe he would be the best one. Yeah. And by best, I mean the funniest one.
Is that because of the accent?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I mean, R.A. Salvatore is from Boston.
Oh, see, there you go.
Yeah, there you go. I'll just tell him, just act like him. It'll be fine.
You'll have to let us know how that goes for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's I like that idea. I'll have to put that in there somehow.
So I guess it was back in the 90s that I started playing with Ted. And I don't recommend this nowadays, and in hindsight it was not the right thing to do, but we would just bully the other players into GMing.
Yeah. And a lot of times that works. If you have people who have the game, they're bored, especially if you're like locked in somewhere, like you're in the military or something.
Yeah.
And well, let's just try it. Somebody's got to run it. You can get somebody to finally, step into the seat.
Red Jack will do the modern setting, and everyone has to park the car.
There you go.
For the Boston accent.
Oh yeah, we'll all be parking the car in the yard for him. So Chris would be the one.
Carmine says R.A. Salvatore speaks very differently from how he writes. That is true. We were lucky enough to have him on for one of these. So
wow.
Oh really?
And actually, he was a really nice guy and great to have on. So you know what they say, never meet your heroes, but in this case, it actually worked out.
That's good. Everything I've read about him, so people say he's a great guy.
Yeah. So, the game that Rebecca ran, was that recorded as well?
Yes, it is recorded. I have not edited it yet. She's gonna do another. We're kind of thinking what we're gonna do with it. So it's recorded, it's stored, it's ready.
Patreon only content.
Patreon only content. That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm
go.
thinking. Give them what they want. And I don't know if that would confuse people putting it out there, because I know like people like Critical Role do it. They'll go along and all of a sudden they'll be like Exandria Unlimited's going on. So
one shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be, but also like Rebecca, like it's inspiration for other people who are afraid to run and haven't run yet. So to see someone do it for the first time, and it is kind of interesting to see like where we are at in this time period with gaming, where people are jumping in and doing things in the industry super fast. Like they're brand new to the hobby, and next thing you know, they're starting companies in the industry. They're doing live plays and streaming stuff. They're jumping in and DMing right away. Where I feel like when people that came from our era was like switching from the other side of the DM screen was much harder, much more of a trip. It felt like you had to like be worthy to be the DM, and
yes.
And I don't feel like the GMs made it that way. I feel like it was this self-imposed thing we had going on.
Yeah, I agree. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things that kind of, I don't know about held the hobby back, but you only had so many DMs.
Yeah.
And if you only have, a couple hundred or a couple thousand, whatever, that's as many games as can be run. And now there's, 1 million people doing it. So
yeah,
it just helps grow it.
It's still lopsided. Players, obviously, because you need more players than you need GMs to play the game.
Right.
But it's gotten a lot better where people are much more willing to put themselves out there and try GMing. They don't feel like they need to be an aficionado on all the rules as much as I feel like we did.
Oh yeah. I used to, when I was in high school, I studied the book. Like I had to know every rule for every situation. And, now it's just whatever. Now the internet exists. So I can find the rule really fast.
Well, and the funny thing is, like, there's a lot more rules in the game than there were when we first started. Mm-hmm. The difference, though, I would say, is there was less rules, but a lot of them were needlessly over complex.
Yeah.
Now, do not say Thaco, because Thaco is not needlessly complex. Thaco was a thing of beauty, and I will die on that hill.
Yeah.
Okay?
What are you
love Thaco.
You must be like an algebra or calculus teacher, really. I don't believe you with the video teacher.
Actually, my thing in high school was math.
Yeah.
I love Thaco. I love the beauty of it.
How can we just take simple
Rest
addition?
in peace. Rest in peace, Thaco.
Yeah.
You're being much more generous than me. Rest in hell, Thaco.
Thaco,
it took me a long time to adjust it. Wait a minute, I want a high AC? What? So
you had to know a little math. Just a little. It's the barest amount of math you had to know. And it confused the hell out of people.
Yeah.
To tell you the truth, I don't think that Thaco. Okay,
it wasn't hard. It was just dumb.
But I think that people now are more confused about Thaco than when Thaco was a thing. When Thaco was a thing, you're like, "This is what we're doing it. Why are we doing that? Because the way it is." Okay, and you just did it. Now people are like, "Wait, I can't do the math. How does this work?" And they're so confused. Like they think you need like a slide rule to make this happen.
Well. I will say, so I guess it was different for all the classes, right? They had their own, their own to hit zero that they needed, right? And the reason why I say Thaco wasn't hard, it was just dumb, because it was really, you started at 0 and you either worked your way to -10 or to +10. Right. When third edition came about, they said, what if we just got rid of the 0 and started a 1? and it just made more sense. So armor class starts at 10, you go up from there, and you have a D20, and also like there was speed factor, and sometimes you needed to roll high, sometimes you needed to roll low, and like every GM ever, it's like you want to try and do something, there's no rule for it, is like grab the percentile dice.
Oh yeah.
And like, you know, some GMs would be like, if you can roll that 0 you can do it. Or if you can roll that, you know, that 01, depending on whether they wanted to go high or low.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You gotta make up the rules. Whatever rules you need, you gotta have them. So
I mean,
make it up
you
as
still
on the
have
fly.
you still have your Thaco dice that roll low. You still have your Thaco dice that roll low.
You know what? I
do. I
Thaco
still
dice.
have, and sometimes I take them out and I roll them. I'm like, oh no, those go away. Those are my Thaco dice.
Do you remember the wheel?
The wheel.
Remind me.
Okay, so in one of the Dragon magazines that came out, it was like cardstock paper that you would cut out.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
And then you would put one of those, I don't know what they're called. It's like a pin, but it then has the other end that splits, so that and it was just wheels, and you would turn them to see what you needed to hit.
Yes.
Like an arcane device.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah, it was fun. Everyone was just trying things out, you know. Things can't start off perfectly. Nothing's perfect.
It is true, and third edition moved towards codifying it, making it more streamlined with more options, and rolling good is always good, rolling bad is always bad. It's funny though, in 5e, divine intervention is just a callback to every GM ever going, grab your percentile dice.
100%. 100. They just made a rule for it. Exactly.
Yeah. They're like,
roll divine intervention. Before it was just like, okay, how do I feel about this?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that would come up often too. It's like, I want to pray to my God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, especially when you were a 5th level character with 12 hit points, you were praying to your god a lot.
Yeah, I was like, listen, no one has any hit points in addition. Your god does not have time for you. Everyone's praying to the gods.
Exactly. Everyone's almost dead.
So we are just at the hour mark. As always, folks, links are in the descriptions. Go check out Sometimes You Crit podcast. Final thoughts before we head on out, Jim?
Thanks for having us. I really appreciate it. I mean, we're having a ball doing this. We're gonna keep on doing it, and I think that if people would give us a listen, they'd find out that we sound a lot like their game at their house. We got a bunch of idiots that are having fun and
I'm not
playing
the
D&D.
idiot. I'm not the idiot.
And Rebecca, final thoughts before we head on out?
I mean, like Jim said, we're just like a regular home game. Sometimes we go off the rails a little bit. We are kind of idiots.
There you go.
We sometimes have the humor of 12-year-old boys, and
that's big D&D energy right there.
Yeah.
She's the biggest 12-year-old boy in the
world.
Trust me.
I really am. But I love the bunch of knuckleheads that I play with, and I think it shows that we have good chemistry when we play together. So we just are lucky enough to record it. So,
well, thanks for being on, both of you, and until next time, everyone, stay nerdy.